Well, it would appear that we have everyone here that we need. Uh, Mr. Assistant District Attorney, I do know that you're.
Yes, Your Honor. I am Seamus Garfield, Assistant to the District Attorney. I represent the prosecution today.
Good. I hear that the district attorney is fallen ill and therefore has passed the case to you. Now, I understand that you're under a bit of a strain as coming into this case with only tangential uh, experience with a lot of the evidence, but we will endeavor to make sure that the accused has a proper and fair trial. Are you prepared to make your opening statement at this time?
I am, Your Honor. Your Honor, citizens of Murkystone, members of the constabulary, everyone here today, we are here, and I am here as a representative of the prosecution today in these final legs of Miss Aphrodite's trial to discuss and pass a verdict on her fate. I firmly believe that question of guilt or innocence is no longer necessarily in play. There is a mountain, a cartload of evidence that I'm sure has taken Your Honor a considerable amount of time to parse through. And even that amount of evidence is only a drop in the proverbial bucket. Anyone and everyone of the citizens, I feel, could be called to the stand, and they would have something substantial to offer should we be inclined to do so or should it prove necessary. However, I am hoping that we shall resolve this matter today, quickly and efficiently, and provide the city of Murkystone the justice it so deserves, and provide Miss Aphrodite the justice she so richly deserves. Based on the various witness accounts and the mountain of evidence against.
Don't mind me, I was testing my gavel.
Based on the evidence, Your Honor, which ranges from nuisance to the city, harassment, the spreading of intentional and malicious rumors, misleading misinformation, to the more extreme, including deliberate acts of terrorism, kidnapping, attempted murders, and organized terrorism. The prosecution believes that the only justice that Miss Aphrodite deserves is an execution by whatever means Your Honor deems appropriate. And it is, I suppose, the defense attorney's, Miss Jones's, unenviable position to try to salvage Miss Aphrodite's fate based against, rather, such a mountain of evidence. That concludes my opening statement, Your Honor.
Very good, thank you, counsel. Uh, Now, the defense, are you prepared for your? you prepared for your
Opening statement.
opening statement? Ms. Jones?
Apologize for that. Let me begin my statement again. My client, known to you all as Marie, but wishing to be known as Aphrodite, has done many things to disturb and I would agree harm the wonderful people of Murkystone. She has made outrageous claims of things that sound nonsensical. She has admitted to putting people in harm's way. She has admitted to being part of a family known as a cult that commit terrible acts of violence. I believe all of this has been done and can only be done not from somebody of sound mind. When one has been horribly handled, brought up, mistreated, abused, it can fracture the mind and the spirit, and unfortunately can cause them to turn to such a lifestyle as Miss Aphrodite has chosen. The actions of my client, the true actions, are not one of sound mind and sane mind. I think all of you will find the evidence can prove this. If one is not of sound mind, they are a danger to themselves and others at times. I do not believe the penitentiary of Murkystone is equipped to handle my client, nor should she be condemned to death due to terrible circumstances in her life leading to this point, and her mental affliction. I trust you all, even having suffered potentially at her hands or her friends. I have empathy for her tortured soul and have empathy for those who were brought up violently or in lesser circumstances than you. And I would call for my client to be sent to the asylum for long-term treatment and rehabilitation. Rehabilitation pending only if the doctors ever deem her fit to re-enter society. But I will let the court on this day be the judge of this. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, darling. Mr. Prosecutor, would you like to call your first witness?
Thank you, Your Honor. I will. I would like prosecution's first witness to be the constabulary chief, Mr. Miles Torello.
Alrighty.
Mr. Trillo, please take the witness stand here. Now, you've already been sworn under oath. Just want to reaffirm that you are still under oath and obligated to answer truthfully and honestly.
I do.
Very good. So let's hear your testimony.
There are a few accounts that I'd like to speak about in regards to Ms. Aphrodite and Marie, as you all know her. There are some that I've seen over the course of her, I guess, fit of terror that's happened throughout the city of Murkystone. One of them being an attempt on my life. I was responding to some disturbances within the area of the Stone Crown, and coming onto that area from the train, I walked up the hill that's there, and all of a sudden I was approached by someone with some red robes. Started speaking to me, and then called out to me called my name out. said, Miles, what are you doing here? What's going on? And, started spewing off about some sort of propaganda about individuals that are trying to help society, not hurt them. And their version of helping society is to rid the world of individuals that shouldn't inhabit it. Now, whatever this propaganda is, or this craziness that she was speaking to me, before I continued the conversation, I asked her, who are you, and how do you know my name? And she said, well, it's me, it's Marie. At the time, she had stated that it was Marie. And she corrected herself and stated that it was indeed Aphrodite. At which point, the conversation ensued, and it came to some blows. She started accusing me of not caring about her, about Murkystone, and people within it, and that her way of doing things was better. Their way of doing things was better to help people. But all I've seen is violence coming from them. No thoughts, actions, or ideas about how it would actually help the people of this town, the city, and surrounding districts. I think that, she was lost to us a long time ago. And I think that Ms. Marie is someone that should face the penalty for her crimes. And attacking myself, coming to blows, trying to kill me, and reacting self-defense for myself. At this point, I don't think she's redeemable. Just by the aggression which she's shown to myself as well as others that I'm sure will be seen within the testimonies of the courtroom as well as the evidence that we have. At this point, I think that'll close out my statements, and I guess that's up to everyone else if they have questions.
I'm sure there will be some questions, Mr. Torello, once the judge.
Residual effects of my overindulgence on the ice cream. Mr. Prosecutor, it is your witness, sir.
Chief Torello, is it fair to say that in your time
Objection,
in
leading.
office,
Sustained. Please rephrase your question.
please give us your best approximation of how many different cases you've handled since you've taken office, Mr.
How many
Torello.
different cases I've handled? Quite a few, honestly, at this point. My best approximation, probably close to 50 or 60.
I see. And how many of those are related to the defendant?
Related to the defendant? 5 or 6 at the most, probably.
Have you had any other individuals for whom you've received nearly as many reports?
There has not been a single individual that has received as many reports as Ms. Marie and or Aphrodite, however she wishes to be called. In terms of reports that I have on her, well, I think the court has seen quite a few of them. I believe all of them at this moment, and most of them categorized into some of those books that they have. If I were to have a number for those reports, probably in between 15 to 20.
How many of your constabularies were injured while attempting to apprehend Miss Aphrodite?
I believe there was 3 or 4.
And I know this has not, we have not brought forward, the prosecution has not called as witnesses any of the poor souls that were kidnapped to avoid making things worse for them, but can you confirm, as chief of the constabulary, that on that day of the kidnappings,
Objection leading.
Sustained, please refrain, counsel.
is it a matter of record in the constabulary that Miss Marie was involved in the kidnappings of 5 people?
Well, as I could not ascertain the specifics of the individuals that are within the robes, there have been circumstances in which Ms. Marie has identified herself out in public while wearing such a disguise. So yes, there are certain times in which it could be seen that Marie has done this.
In your professional opinion, as a constabulary, do you see the possibility of remorse in the defendant?
I have interviewed her multiple times. I have talked to her at length. And at the moment, from what I understand and the way in which she carries herself, speaks to the people of Murkystone, speaks about them, she doesn't care about them. And I think she is willing to go through whatever she needs to accomplish their goal.
Thank you. And similarly, as someone who has been in the best position to follow all the reports and everything that's been happening, do the defendant's actions seem erratic and uncoordinated?
Objection leading.
Sustained, counsel, please be careful about how you phrase your questions, sir.
Ziftrella,
Yes.
is this the behavior of an uncoordinated person that doesn't know what they're doing? In your opinion, as chief of constabulary?
From the evidence and information that I have gathered of Ms. Marie, I believe that she is operating with others who are pulling her strings, that are leading her in a direction in which she wants to go, and I believe she is doing this willingly.
Thank you. Your witness, defendant. Defense, rather.
Defense, that is your cross-examination.
Yes. Thank you, Your Honor. Chief. You stated just now that she does not care for the citizens of Murkystone. Why do you believe this?
Because there's multiple instances of her identifying herself and hurting people within Murkystone. Why would someone that cares so much about Murkeystone and its people, at least the way she professes it to be, hurt the people that reside within it? To me, the answer is they wouldn't. They would seek avenues of good, calm, coordinated efforts for the people of Murkeystone to be safe and taken care of in the way they need to be. And she has not shown that. Hurting someone that's trying to keep the peace and help people to preserve their freedoms and the laws that we have. Why would someone do such a thing? To me, it's not fathomable. From what I can ascertain from the situation, it's because she's seeing things through a small lens, not the bigger picture. And that small lens is what she's been given this information to persuade her and push her into the actions that she's done.
Have you received, I do have copies of some of them, but I will ask, have you received reports of Miss Aphrodite telling people repeatedly that, let me rephrase that. Have you received reports of Miss Aphrodite showing affection to others, sometimes very uncomfortably so?
Yes, on many occasions. I believe if I were to recount them, apologies, I don't have all the reports in front of me, but I believe it's been 3 or 4 at the moment of different individuals that have wished to file restraining orders against her for her uncomfortable displays of affection, as well as making people feel as though they are unsafe.
In these reports, in what ways do you recall, if you do, was she making people feel unsafe?
By expressing degrees of affection, such as stating the term I love you on multiple occasions in quick succession, that caused individuals to refrain from speaking to her because of the kind of uncomfortable nature of doing so for an extended period of time. As well as not just that term, but also attempting to pose displays of affection in a more personal way, such as hugging and things of that nature, when it was not warranted or asked for.
That would be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Torello. You may step down. Will the prosecution please call their next witness?
The prosecution would like to call Miss Rose O'Quinn to the stand if she wishes to testify.
Miss O'Quinn, are you in the courtroom?
I am, Your Honor. I was not briefed on this.
You can refuse if you should like.
If not, please step forward and have a seat at the witness stand here. Miss O'Quinn, do you affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Very good. Mr. Prosecutor, your witness?
Mr. Quinn, we have here a request for a restraining order signed by you. Will you please talk to us about what made you feel this was a necessary action?
Very well. I see. You want everything about it, or just the small details?
Whatever you're comfortable sharing.
She came up to me and repeatedly asked me for physical affection, asking me over and over if I wanted a hug. I told her repeatedly no. No, I did not want a hug. I asked her to leave me alone. Not 10 minutes later, she again approached me, asking me again for if I wanted attention, and I, at this point, ignored her. She approached me a few hours later. I'd already told her, leave me alone. At this point, I told her, I asked her to leave me alone. She would not. This time, the chief was around. He told me if this is to become an issue, I could request a restraining order. I think she gets the hint. I've told her to leave me alone. She began then telling other people that I was wanting to be left alone. I said, no, I've told you I want you to leave me alone. I'm fine with other people. But she continued to tell other people in towns that I was being moody or needing to be left alone. And again, I kept telling her, no, I want you to leave me alone. I don't want you talking to me. I'm fine with other people talking to me. She told Miss Tamara she had her come and try and speak with me to repair our relationship. Not 30 minutes later. That's according to the lieutenant herself. So at that point, again, I felt that I was being harassed, and I asked for the restraining order to be filed because I felt I was being harassed and not being left alone, as I had requested on several occasions at this point. Over the next few days, again, I had heard many rumors that were being spread by the defendant here, and she again would come up and still stand close next to me and start conversations with people that were standing directly next to me. She would still start talking to people that were next to me, saying that I did not wish to be talked to, that I wanted to be left alone. She was not respecting my boundaries, even after the restraining order, the paperwork had been filed.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. It says here that you had similar conversations 3 times with her about stressing to her your desire to leave you alone. Was there any difference between those 3 conversations in her demeanor?
This was almost a month ago. I don't remember at this point.
Understandable. Have you had any further interactions with her since then?
I ran into her a few times, about 6 times in one day when she was harassed after she revealed herself. Ran into her in Angel's Cove, ran into her in Tinker's Hollow, just ran into her in the Highlands. She just kept trying to talk to everyone. She was talking all the nonsense about the fairy tale creatures. But again, I don't think she was ever made aware that the restraining order had been filed, and I don't think she would have cared either.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. No further questions, Your Honor.
Very good. Defense, your witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Miss O'Quinn, what fairy tale creatures did she speak of to you?
The same ones that she's been talking about nonstop for the past month.
And do you recall what they are specifically? Can you tell the court?
Yes, it's the same ones that she's been posting everywhere. The vampire werewolf things that she keeps talking about.
When you ran into her, and she was speaking of these creatures, what was her demeanor? What was she like?
Well, she was standing up on top of a hill, and she was being accusatory about certain members of the community, and she almost seemed questioning about why we weren't questioning them about it. If I remember correctly, again, apologies. It's been about 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks since then.
It's fine. That's understandable. Apologies, I had to rub my ear for a second.
It was just nonsense. I don't know.
Did she, when you ran into her one of these times, did she try to hug you again or ask you for any affection?
Not these times, because the constabulary was right next to me each time, and every time she saw the constabulary, she simply would run away.
Do you recall which constabulary members were with you?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled. What would, please answer the question.
I do not.
Alright, that's fine. No further questions. Thank you, Miss Oakway.
Thank you, Miss O'Quinn. You may step down. Mr. Prosecutor, please call your next witness.
I would like to ask Mr. Maximilian to the stand, if he is willing.
Mr. Maximilian, are you in the courtroom?
Yes, I am.
Would you please step up to the witness stand? Now, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Do you affirm this?
As ever, yes.
Very good. Mr. Prosecutor, your witness, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Maximilian, please recount to us your encounter with the defendant that led to your injury.
I was on a picnic at the time. Marie, as well as another individual in red robes, arrived to interrupt. After pulling me away, we walked by a cliff and Miss Marie started asking me to prove that I was a human. Did not know what that meant or how I was supposed to prove that I am what I am, but nonetheless, she began telling me that I needed to jump off the cliff in order to prove myself, or she was going to cut off a limb of mine, and when that didn't work, she threatened to take the individual I was there with and throw her off the cliff. So I did what I felt would keep the others there safe and turned around and did as she was asking.
Very. Yes. You mentioned. Pardon me. Do not wish to make you repeat yourself. Well, I applaud you for your bravery. Tell me, Mr. Maximilian, is this the only instance you've seen the defendant cooperating, colluding, or otherwise acting as a member of this cult in red?
No, it was not.
How many other times?
At least one other that I know of. Though I've heard plenty of rumors, of course. But one other that I was present for.
Did that other instance also end in violence or no?
It very much so did, sir.
And did the defendant, during these encounters, how did she carry herself? How did she look? Her demeanor, I believe the word was that was used.
I would say until a certain substance was inhaled by her, from which I'm not sure she obtained this substance, she had been of very clear, sound mind, and then afterwards she was like a bunny rabbit, running around and chaotic like.
Thank you. So Maximilian, you mentioned that you were on a picnic with someone and that someone was threatened, which led to you jumping. Who was with you on that day?
I was with Dolly Murder.
Ah, yes. Our condolences for your loss, for your recent loss, that is. And were you and Miss Murder romantically involved during that time?
We were. In a sense, yes.
Mm. He was courting her.
And it was the threat towards her that finally convinced you, metaphorically and literally, to go over the edge. Is that accurate?
That would be correct, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Very good. Defense, your witness cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Maximilian. Why did you allow Miss Marie to pull you away from your picnic and Miss Murder?
Up until that point in time, she had never tried harming me or threatened me. It was not my opinion at the time that that is what she was going to be doing. She simply said that she wanted to talk. So, we separated away to talk.
Was she wearing red robes at the time?
She was.
Did she reveal herself as being Marie to you?
She did tell me that it was her. However, no, I did not see her face, if that is what you're asking. When these people wear their robes, they do not ever reveal themselves. However, the
Go ahead.
words she used talking about love, wanting to know whether I was worthy of love, and so forth, aligns very much so with the way that Miss Marie acted in public. So I had no reason to disbelieve that her word would be false.
What is the reason my client gave you for asking you to jump off of a cliff?
The reason she gave is she simply said she wanted to know if I was human. Told me that I needed to prove it.
Did she accuse you of being something else specifically?
No, she did not. She simply told me that I needed to prove that I was human.
You stated she did a substance. Do you recall what that substance looked like?
The substance from a separate incident would have been a white powdery substance.
And one more question. What do you believe should be the fate of Marie? What does justice look like to you?
would say that Miss Marie is in great need of assistance with her mental state. Whatever any doctor might suggest being the best course of action to correct that mental state be the course that should be followed.
No further questions, thank you.
Miss Anastasia Brown to the stand if she is willing to testify.
Miss Brown, are you in the courtroom?
Yes, Judge, I'm here.
Are you willing to testify, darling?
So do affirm.
Very good. Please have a seat. Mr. Prosecution, your witness, sir.
Miss Brown, thank you for agreeing to testify. Please take your time and, in your own words and thoughts, describe to the court your interactions with the defendant.
When I first met the defendant, I will be honest, I thought she was just a little naive, sort of simple woman, super excited to be in Murkystone. Sort of sheltered, but over time she made a variety of odd little statements that didn't quite make sense. She didn't seem to understand how her actions would be perceived by folks, but at the same time, at one point she did speak of me of having traveled a great deal, been to many places. But another instance, I was at the hospital recovering, and she came in and she started off normal visit, and then suddenly she got odd. She told me I needed to be careful, and she warned me that people weren't what they appeared to be. She fiddled about a bit, and there was muttering, sort of oddness, like she was protecting me, I guess is the best way to describe it. She told me that she felt like she was the only one who knew how to love, that she was the only one who felt love for anyone else, which at the time offended me greatly, as I loved my late husband deeply, and she knew how I felt. So when I fussed at her and told her that I did understand love, she said, "No, Miss Anastasia, you don't." But her tone was so alien. There have been a number of occasions she muttered that one day she would show people her love. It wasn't a statement of hope. It sounded like she was threatening people. She scared me the first time she said it, before anything truly noteworthy happened. The last time I spoke with her, we were in Angelwood Cove. It was myself, Stannis, and my business associate and friend Jacqueline. She stood there at the train station and tried to convince Jacqueline that she should leave Stannis, that he was lying to her, deceiving her, using her, that he was a monster. Marie's always had a strange obsession with love, and she tended to focus very heavily on couples. What she said to Jacqueline and Stannis infuriated me. I have never seen someone try so hard to destroy the affections of a young couple as I saw on those stairs. She even went so far as to say that she wanted to speak to Jacqueline, that she cared about her, she loved her. She was trying to save her from him. I believe it was Mr. Stannis who brought up the fact that she had hurt Jacqueline, cut her. Marie offered to let Jacqueline cut her herself if it would make her feel better. At this point, I got as upset, I believe, as Mr. Stannis and put myself between her and Jacqueline. I couldn't stand to see the effect she was having. I told her that even if she was part of these folks in the red robes, she wasn't even like them, because she didn't understand people and she had no compassion. That's when she told me that they were her friends and they understood her and they loved her. And that was when I realized that there was something very broken in her and very, very dangerous. There's people who don't see the world right, in my opinion. And what she's done, what she said to me, how she got inside my mind and twisted things. That's not the actions of someone who don't see the world right. It's the action of somebody who sees it just fine. She sees it just fine, and she's perfectly willing to manipulate people into proving herself right. She knew what she was saying. She knew what she was doing. She had very clear understanding at that time, and several others that I talked with her. She did apply to work for me at the realty office, but her behavior with folks made them afraid, uncomfortable, and they did not trust her. And my office must be trusted, for we will have access to the privacy of every person. So, I did not hire her. That sums up my thoughts on that matter, sir.
Thank you, Miss Brown. For that statement. Prosecution has no questions, Your Honor.
Very good. Defense, your witness.
Thank you. Miss Brown.
Yes, ma'am.
You stated that our tone was alien on that one occasion. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. There were many occasions that I spoke with Marie. I saw her almost daily for a long time, multiple times a day. She always seemed and presented very happy, eager, affectionate. She would touch people all the time, trying to touch people, even when they told her not to. She literally tried to carry a woman off to live and hearken to me. Somebody a lot colder.
You stated that when she first arrived, she seemed pretty normal. You witnessed her being kind to people, helping them out, anything like that.
I did not say normal, ma'am, at all. I said she seemed simple. She was never normal. From the moment I met her, she didn't have the social skills that you would expect from a woman her age, even one from an isolated upbringing. She clung to folks. She simpered up to them. She tried to get them to confide in her, to tell her things about themselves. She did it to me so much that I'm sorry, I just need a moment, please. Marie wanted people to talk to her about themselves. She was constantly after people from the very first, telling them instead of asking them, instead of building a relationship, she would tell them they were friends. She was their friend, to talk to her, that they could trust her. She hounded people. She was never normal. But this is Murkystone, and it has always been a place where the eccentric, the inventive, the creative come.
God, this is intense.
She was never normal.
No, she's not. She was
What
very
she
strange.
did and said was kindness, was never perceived as kindness. It was strange behavior. Too eager, too invasive, too pushy.
Pushy.
And then she attacked Dr. Lucian Gray. There was something. I never got the right of it. She went after him for unknown reasons. The man has never done her harm, never offered anyone violence in this city.
True.
When
Facts.
she was asked about it, she was just as chipper and cheerful and disturbing. But people tried so hard to give that woman a place that even someone a little different would find a place in society. She got inside my head and convinced me of a lot of things that it took a lot of time to pry out of my mind.
No apologies needed, ma'am. You said she offered Jacqueline the opportunity to cut her. Did you mean literally or proverbially?
Literally, ma'am. That was the moment I found out she'd convinced Jacqueline that was in that relationship. And they are happy. They take care of each other properly, respectfully. But she wasn't just after them. I saw her with other couples, chasing after them when they were trying to have a quiet moment together, inserting herself in people's lives, forcefully in some occasions. They couldn't get rid of her, not be polite at the same time. civilized people don't know how to handle someone who has no
Boundaries.
concern.
You stated that her behavior made people in your office uncomfortable. Did these people state what behaviors?
Not just my office man, but in general. Loitering around their homes, forcing herself into conversations when they had tried to seek a moment of privacy. She was intrusive. She was conniving. She was conniving. That's the word I would use. She hounded myself and Victoria Rose to gain access to the housing listings where everyone in Murkystone lives. Almost from the moment that she started training to see if she could become a realtor. I had multiple people come up to tell me that she had asked them to make certain I knew that she had sold them a house, when in fact that was actually a violation of the restrictions on her as a trainee. They don't sell homes, they don't take sovereigns from anyone. They show people the different districts. They explain how housing works here in Murkystone. Basically, they give tours. They could not give keys of any sort to anyone, nor could they receive any monies at all. But she made certain everyone she showed anything housing-wise would come to me to praise her. She told them what to say to me. They found it disturbing. Several of them expressed a desire to not work with her as a realtor in any way, shape, or form. It was not just my office man. She told me I wasn't strong enough, that I needed to not get people hurt, that she didn't blame me, that it was the people who let me get hurt. She tried to make me doubt people who had helped me and make me feel like I didn't have any value, that I should just listen to her times. And it wasn't until somebody else noticed it that anybody, I'm sorry, she got inside my head, convinced me of a lot of things, that I was a burden, that I shouldn't have fired her, that I should have had her in the office with me.
Oh my
that
God.
I shouldn't go around with folks that couldn't keep me safe. And when she saw me doing what she wanted, she spoke to me like a child, like you would speak to a child that is finally behaving.
Oh my gosh.
Again, I apologize. I have no further questions.
The prosecution would like to call Lieutenant Constable Tamara Williams to the stand, if she's willing to testify.
Is this individual in the courtroom?
I am.
Please take the witness stand.
Yes, sir.
With the defendant.
Well, I'll be honest. At first, they started out just fine. She was somebody I met early on that was nice, kind. However, within about a week or two's time, I started to notice some odd behaviors about her, some social cues that didn't seem like normal folk usually handle themselves. We had a bunch of complaints coming in from various different people across the town about some of the concerning things that she was doing. Whether it be overly emotional, touching people when they didn't want to be touched, saying some strange things about loving them, an overabundance of her definition of love, and it was alarming to say the least. The constabulary took those reports from each individual person. I don't recall how many there were, but there were at least 3 or 4. She had a couple bouts of stalking some folks in town too. Although a lot of my experiences with her have been strained, I have tried to keep myself professional and tell her several times she cannot act a certain way in public. She has been told by many officers of the constabulary, but despite those warnings, she has continued to act upon what she considers loving people. And to say the least, towards by the time we captured her, those relations that I had with her were even further strained because she talked about cleansing people in various ways, for whatever religious beliefs she believed upon, and has led me into many ambushes to get hurt, further leading to me being hospitalized for at least 4 or 5 days for my injuries. So, she is a terrible person and she is a menace to society.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Tell me, have you seen the defendant in an organized act of these cultists?
Yes.
Under what circumstances?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I never saw her in those robes that those Soul Invictus cultists were in. However, she led me into an ambush in the Highlands about a couple weeks ago, and I was ambushed right after she had become a menace and threatening people and causing problems for the public in Murkystone by poking and prodding and trying to bring people to the Highlands. I followed her through because I wanted her to stop. I told her at the time that she was going to be arrested. She refused, and she led me into an ambush by 3 cultists, because by the time I walked through the train station and out the other side, 3 of them were waiting for me, and an altercation transpired, and she also attacked me along with them and Mr. Roderick in a heated battle.
And what injuries, if any, did you sustain in that altercation?
I believe I had a laceration to my abdomen, a laceration to my back, and a laceration to my chest that required several series of stitches and an extensive stay in the hospital.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Very good. The defense, it's your witness.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Constable Tamar, Lieutenant. You said that you saw my client. These ambushes, can you be sure that it was her?
Yes, she was in plain clothing, but she was there. She was talking about being cleansed. She cornered me in a field with some other witnesses at the time that are also here in this courtroom. I could attest to it. And the 3 cultists that were waiting for me came right after me going through the train station. So yes, she was present. In plain clothing, but not in red robes.
Alright. Did you witness some of the behaviors mentioned in court today? Her speaking of love, hugging others.
Yes.
Was this a very common occurrence?
Exceptionally so. Even if others asked her not to do something, she did it anyway. She forcibly pushed herself on others when it was not wanted, many times. Even after those people have told her no repeatedly, she continued to hug and touch them when they did not want to be touched.
Esquire Jones, you're doing
No
a good
further
job, but
questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
bottom line is,
All right, you may step down. Prosecution, next witness.
The prosecution would like to call. One moment. Miss Scylla Rin, if that's how you pronounce it, to the stand if she's present
Oh.
and willing to testify.
Ms.
Of
Rin,
course.
are you present in the courtroom? Very good. Please take the stand, Ms.
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You so do affirm?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. Mr. Prosecutor, your witness?
Thank you, Your Honor. Miss Scylla, there have been admitted into evidence some reports that state that you and the defendant had a verbal altercation that included threats. I would like you to recount that event for the court if you know what I'm referring to.
Of course. I would say, man, it's hard to keep track of time, but some time ago, Marie, the morning of that incident, had come to the house of Gray Manor. She wasn't acting like herself. She was very agitated, very verbal in how people have secrets, and she will find these secrets. And power or knowledge is power, and of course, at the time, both me and Lucian Gray tried to calm her down, shaking off what she was saying. But later in the day, when I was in the square surrounded by severals, I couldn't tell you who was around now if my life depended on it. She came out and she says, Scylla, I would be careful walking home in the dark. You could get mugged. It was at this time that I decided enough was enough and I sought the constables out.
Why did you feel that was necessary, Miss Scylla?
Well, sir, with all due respect, if someone was threatening you, wouldn't you have enough?
That's very fair. No further questions, Your Honor.
Very good. The defense, you may cross-examine.
How do I pronounce your name properly, ma'am?
Many call me Scylla. That is fine.
Silent. You stated she wasn't acting like herself, that she was very agitated. How did she usually act toward you?
Usually, as I'm sure many have recounted, she's a very bubbly personality, speaking of love and how everybody needs to have love in their heart and everybody should love one another. This day she did not, and it wasn't the first occurrence of this. But it was the one that changed the turn of events.
You stated that you felt threatened. Did she threaten you, or did she just say that you would get mugged?
Sure felt like a threat, because it was pointed at me, ma'am.
No further questions.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Ms. Rand, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Prosecutor, please call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the prosecution would like to call Doctor and Council Member Lucian Gray to the stand if he's present and willing to testify.
Are you present in the courtroom?
I am.
That is, I am, Your Honor.
I am, Your Honor. I'm here.
Very good. Please step to the witness stand. Now, Mr. Gray, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You so do affirm?
I affirm.
Very good. Mr. Prosecutor, it's your witness.
Dr. Gray, in your capacity as council member, which I believe you have held for some time, has it ever been brought to your attention, any of this behavior?
Yes. Many a times. Outside of council, of course.
In what context, if you think you could generalize?
Murray and I have many encounters. But with the context you're asking for, I've had many people come to me with complaints about her over-attachment towards them. She would violate personal space. She would look through windows. She would try to garner information any way she could. Very uncomfortable presence, many people would say.
Yes, very consistent. And Dr. Gray, I do apologize if I bring up a painful personal experience, but it has been mentioned today in this courtroom that You have had a personal altercation with the defendant, and if my information is not incorrect, you were also one of those kidnapped. I would like you to recount these instances if you are willing to.
I can do that. Okay. Marie was always. How do I say this? She was always trying. Sorry, she was always trying to be overly attached. Especially if I was walking in the workshop, she would come around. She would, how do I say this, unprovokedly try to flirt. And of course I would be busy, so I wouldn't put that much attention to it. One day when I was in the workshop, she told me her affections for me were personal and that she wanted to be romantic. I told her I was not interested. But she said she didn't care, that she still loved me. Over and over again. One day I was in the Highlands doing a contract job, and the cultist dressed in red approached me and gave me a letter, sighing and crying that they felt bad because they had to kill me even though they loved me, to cleanse my filth. Fast forward a few weeks, maybe a month. Marie would be stalking me outside the windows, my friends, my family. To the point that it got really, really uncomfortable. I had to tell her to stop many times. But she would say it was all in the name of love. That love was everything then. That she loved everyone. And she understood that I couldn't love her the way she loved me, but it was okay. One day we was heading home, and there was a cultist attack happening outside my house. The constabulary and regular normal people were just trying their best to fight them off. And as I walked around my house to try to see if I could get some shelter and protect the ones I cared for, I stepped on a pressure plate. Unbeknownst to me, it teleported me, or that's the best way I can describe it, into a cage. And in that cage, I was confronted by 7 to 9 cultists, and they were trying to garner information. I would not give them any. I did not waver or falter. I was angry, actually. I wasn't scared for my life. But there was this one cultist that kept coming back over and over again, and I didn't understand why. Small frame. One that you can say looked like Marie, but you wouldn't know for sure. After I was incredibly unrespectful to these people. They pressed a button and it sent me back home. Everything had stopped. The attacks had stopped. Everything was back to normal. But something happened that triggered an after effect, and I was whisked away again. And while I was whisked away is when I saw her again. But this time, she was very vocal. She was excited to see me in the cage again, and called me a dog. Called me all the things you can imagine, and how killing me is going to be the best day of your life. She talked about stabbing me, and how my blood would just cleanse this land. I couldn't believe it was actually her for certain at that time, but when she announced her name and she laughed a maniacal laugh, a laugh that would make your skin crawl. With joy, she said she would do it. she laughed at all the people she conquered, and if she laughed at the torture things she did to people, she would say it. I'm sure the other cultists were there, but they were telling her they were pulling her aside to keep her mouth from keep on flapping, but she lost all sense of reality. I was whisked away again back home. That was the last time I personally saw Marie.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. Do you want to go into any detail about what was said after she revealed herself during your incarceration?
Actually, she kept on praising her god, Helios, one of those two, and that her god is going to come and destroy this world to make it anew, and that by our blood everything will be cleansed.
That is worrying. In your time there, were you at all able to discern whether that was her own sentiment or one shared by the rest of them?
It seemed to be a collective mind. They seemed to all be praising this Helios. Yeah. Very, very ecstatically praising his name out loud. The power that she said was bestowed upon her by him that made her so strong. She said that the power that Helios gave all of them is the reason why they were incredibly powerful and that we stand no chance.
And their stated goal was a cleansing. Can you elaborate on that?
She went around with this fairy tale notion, talking about how non-humans need to be wiped from the face of this earth, their blood spilled to cleanse the world. She thought I was one of these things. She said I should be collared and killed.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. No further questions, Your Honor.
The defense, it's your witness, Cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Gray, Dr. Gray. Did you ask her what the filth she was referring to was that needed cleansing?
I didn't have to ask her. She said it very loud and clear. She said the fairy tale creatures, vampires and werewolves, need to be eradicated and cleansed.
Did she accuse you of being one of these?
Yes. Yes, she did.
Have you, well, that led into my next question. Have you ever heard my client talk about fairy tale creatures and fantastical things? Let's go with prior to that event.
I can sit here and say I have, but she would allude to me many a times that she wanted to join my family, and I always found her not of sane mind, I guess, when she asked these questions, because I always ask her, Marie, you're not from my family, why would you want to join it? And she would say, well, you know why, as if playing a game with me, like if I was supposed to know what she was talking about.
Do you believe that my client is a religious fanatic?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained. Please rephrase your question, counsel.
I'll just continue to the next question. Do you truly believe my client to be harmful, lethal? Do you believe that she could kill you?
Absolutely.
No further questions.
Very good. Mr. Gray, you may step down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Affirm.
Oui, absolutely.
Could you please answer in yes or no, darling?
Yes.
Very good. Please be seated. Prosecution, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Rousseau, we have heard twice now from other witnesses about this specific incident between yourself and the defendant. I would like, if you are comfortable doing so, that you recount it for the court.
Repeat the question?
I would like you to recount the incident that we have heard about between you and the defendant.
Oui. I considered Marie a friend. I felt maybe she needed guidance, or somebody to care about her. She seemed very childlike in her demeanor. And one day she wanted to have tea, so she came to my house. We made small talk, and then she asked if I would do something without question. And she asked me to hold out my hand, and she could not continue until I did this, and to trust her. I told her that if I did this, she would have to explain to me why. The secrecy about why she needed to do this. She then proceeded to cut my hand. She did tell me that it was a test. And she had more. She then... sorry, she just wanted to feel my heartbeat. At this point, I begged her to tell me. Eventually, I got it out of her that she believes that there are fairy tale creatures in the lands, werewolves and vampires. I did not believe it, obviously. She then told me that she would hate to have to I forgot the exact words, but she would hate to have happened if I did not choose correctly.
No, all these people that are portraying
And she
these
wanted me
characters.
to test Stannis to see if he was human, if he would bleed.
Everyone bleeds, even if you're not human. Animals bleed. That makes no sense.
She directed you to stab your partner to make him bleed.
She said I need to test him to make sure he bleeds, and has a heartbeat.
In your interactions with the defendant, how have you felt during those times?
Unsettled, uneasy. Her demeanor went from the bubbly young girl that everybody saw to serious to smart to calculated. It left a pit in my stomach when I realized that one of the two is a facade.
Thank you, Miss Rousseau. No further questions from the prosecution, Your Honor.
Oh, very good. Defense, your witness.
No questions, Your Honor.
Very good. Miss Rousseau, you may step down.
Merci.
Mr. Prosecutor, please call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The next person on the witness list for the prosecution is a Miss Alice Rivera, if she's present and willing to testify.
Is this individual present in the courtroom?
Yes, Your Honor.
Would you care to step up to the witness stand, please?
Actually liked the way she looked, her skin tone. Told her I would like to have that tone, skin tone. So she said, I know the right place where to go. So you can get that. So we proceeded to the train. She bought 2 tickets to Mitra's Tears. So I sit down, enjoying the breeze and the sun. She then proceeded and said, may I put this on you? It's a cream to protect your skin. I said, sure. I mean, I trusted her. So she did, and it had a weird, just smell, strong smell of just really bad smell. She waited for a bit. We were just talking, and then she gets up suddenly and she says, it's time for us to head back. We started walking towards the train. I decided to take a swim to get off that cream. I did. We proceeded to the train. And as we were proceeding, she said, make sure you tell everyone what I gave you, what it has. The ingredients are garlic and silver. Make sure you tell everyone that. I honestly thought she was just being Marie, joking. I really didn't say anything to anybody. I thought that was crazy. I wasn't going to say that to people. But I did talk to Miss Rose the following day. And she has said to me that I should make a report about it. I said, no, I'm not doing that. I think I'm going to find out more about this substance, ask her for a sample. Few days later, I broke down with a rash, severe rash. I was hospitalized for a day, and I was in pain. I couldn't touch any part of my body because I was in pain. Dr. Graymore made some tests. He ran some tests. He said that I was allergic to silver, and just to be careful with the type of jewelry, silver jewelry. That's it. I have not seen her since then.
Miss Rivera, how long did your recovery take?
Excuse me, sir, I didn't hear you.
How long did it take for you to fully recover from this reaction?
It took me 4 days, approximately 4 or 5 days.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Very good. Defense, you'll witness for cross.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Miss Alice, did my client tell you at all what was in this cream?
Yes, ma'am. She said ingredients were silver and garlic. That's what she said.
Did you ask her any questions about this?
I did not.
Did my client state that she uses this cream or no?
She didn't say that. She just said that it will protect me from getting a sunburn.
Did my client tell you why she was sunburned or how she got sunburned?
No, she didn't.
And one more, did she speak to you at all about the fairy tale creatures?
She did not.
Right. Thank you. No further questions.
Very good. You may step down, Miss Rivera.
Thank you, sir.
It is Your Honor or Judge, not sir.
Sorry about that, Your Honor.
Miss Prosecutor, your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The prosecution's next witness is going to be Constable Riley.
constable, or are you in the courtroom?
Yes, Your Honor, and I'm just a secretary. I'm not a constable.
I apologize, I will correct my notes.
Would you please approach the witness stand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You so do affirm? Very good. Please have a seat, Mr. Prosecutor, your witness.
Secretary Riley, in your capacity as secretary, do you receive the reports? Do you understand their contents, or do you just pass them on?
I receive all of the reports, and I understand all of them.
And would you say that there have been a lot of reports regarding the behavior of the defendant?
Yes.
In the last few weeks, since the defendant's
Incarceration.
metaphorical unmasking as a member of this group, have you seen or received word of her participating in violent activities with this group?
Yes, I was one of them that interviewed, part of the interview with Mr. Lucian when he was kidnapped along with myself.
I apologize for asking you to recount such a possibly traumatic event, but would you like to tell us what that experience was
Possibly
like for you?
traumatic, to recount such a horrendous act. I love it. I love it!
It was rough.
I love Conan.
We were in a very small cell, and most of the time all they did was stare at us.
Stare? Why?
As if they were studying us like we were weird things.
Interesting. Penelope's thoughts. Why would they sit there and stare at you? That's odd behavior.
Thank you. In your capacity as a secretary and receiving and reading and understanding all the reports as you said you do, what is your understanding of the mission of these cultists? What are they attempting to do?
From my understanding is they want to eradicate everything that goes bump in the night. Their words.
I love it!
And what actions have you seen them take as a group since you started receiving reports about their activities? What have they actually done?
What haven't they done?
Me personally, what I've seen, I haven't, other than kidnapping me. Most of what I've seen was just a lot of see but not hear. Now the reports have come across my desk have been reports of ambushes and attacks on the constables.
So they're targeting the law.
Thank you. And do you believe there is let me rephrase that. How likely or unlikely do you think is the defendant's membership and participation in this group of masked individuals? Would you like to elaborate on this?
From the last the last attack they did on 2 separate constables, they personally said to thank the constabulary for taking Marie, or Miss Aphrodite, into custody, as they were planning on killing her. They thanked us for doing their job for them.
Wow, that's sad. What a twist of fate.
A constable, Isabel, she said there was werewolves and vampires. She was even naming people that were such creatures.
Did she ever accuse you of being one of these creatures?
No.
Did you see my client during your kidnapping? Her face? Or was everyone in robes?
Everybody was in robes and masks.
You stated that the cultists thanked the constabulary for taking my client into custody. Did they say why?
Because they were planning on killing her.
They say why they were planning on killing her.
She
They
wrote too
said-
much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Prosecution, would you like to call your next witness?
Your Honor, I will do all of us a favor and consider my point well made, and will leave my witness list unfinished. The prosecution rests.
Very good. Does the defense have any witnesses to call?
Yes, Your Honor, I have one. The ones I intended to call have already been called in question, so just the one.
All right, very well. Who is it?
I would like to call Miss Evelyn Grace to the stand.
Miss Grace, are you in the courtroom?
Yes, Your Honor, I am.
Would you please come to the stand? Miss Grace, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You so do affirm?
I do.
Very good. Ms. Jones, you're a witness?
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, is it Miss Grace or is it Dr. Grace?
Dr. Grace.
Dr. Grace. Now, I recall you told me that you were looking after Ruffles, my client's dog, and questioned you about your friendship. Asked you to give a character testimony. Would you like to elaborate on the character of Miss Aphrodite?
Well, before all of this began, I'd only known Miss Marie, as she's for a few days. It was a relatively short time, and in that time I observed that she was consistently exhibiting a pleasant and respectful demeanor, and throughout our interaction she never showed me any malice towards myself or to anyone. During the short time, she did display a high level of energy, and though with she did manage to be quite cooperative and considerate when she was asked to adjust those behaviors. And you know, it's important for me to note that she did at times struggle with maintaining personal space in social settings, and while these often caused discomfort, she adjusted that behavior when I asked her to.
Did she speak to you about her dog Ruffles?
I met Mr. Ruffles on the first day that I was introduced to Marie. She invited me to move into her attic, which did cause concern for myself, but I do have a duty of care as a doctor, and I could see that she had significant challenges in regards to social cues and mental health, emotional regulation, and that warranted my professional attention, in my opinion. In regards to Mr. Ruffles, I currently don't know.
Off the topic of Mr. Ruffles now, with yourself, even though you knew her briefly, did she attempt to hug you or invade your personal boundaries?
She did, but when I advised her that it was not appropriate and I did not consent to her performing such acts, she adjusted those behaviors.
Right, that is all the questions that I have, Your Honor.
Very good. Mr. Prosecutor, it's your witness for cross-examination.
No questions, Your Honor.
Very good. Dr. Grace, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Prosecution, are you prepared for your closing statements at this time?
One moment, Your Honor. Just about.
Your Honor, if I may.
Yes, what is it, counsel?
There is one more thing I'd like to present to the court. A psychiatric evaluation conducted by Dr. Graymore, who was supposed to be here testifying but was unable.
And I understand that report is under sworn affidavit?
That's right, Your Honor, yes.
Very good. Would you care to read it for the court?
Yes, Your Honor, I can. Psychiatric evaluation conducted by Dr. Graymore on August the 25th. It is written in shorthand, but the notes are as follows. Miss Aphrodite was born into the cult. She's claiming certain individuals are vampires and werewolves. States that it is her purpose to deal with these individuals. She says that others need to embrace the love of Helios and that he is her god. She claims she has had a dream of Helios telling her to spread love, and that is why her parents did what they did. And as for what they did, her father locked her in her room every night and made her forge. Her mother taught her how to brew and experimented on her with these concoctions. There was no socialization. She was locked in her room. She said she met other people of the cult during worship times only. She was shown creatures and a werewolf killed another girl right in front of her, as per her own statements. She created an ointment with her knowledge of concoctions learned from her mother for the purpose of worshipping the sun. She put silver into this, and as was mentioned earlier, continuing reading, her father eventually had her branded and stated that this was to show his affection and it was done out of love. Mother would inject her with some of the concoctions, and she stated she did not have any other family, and often some of the lower ranking members of this cult would try to let her out to go for morning worship, and that was the extent of her socialization. Dr. Graymore's words at the end state, my medical evaluation of Miss Bayo is as follows. Heavy fanatical indoctrinations throughout her life, psychosis and other forms of mental deviations. Was told she was being showed love through pain and experimentation. Strong concern that Marie's love would be some form of violence. At this time, Miss Marie Bayo is considered criminally insane and should not be released to the public in any short amount of time.
See?
That is the end of the psychiatric evaluation, Your Honor.
We'll make sure that that is entered into the record. Mr. Prosecution, are you prepared? Before I get started with that, is there any other things we need to know about or need to be entered into or read to the court at this time?
No, Your Honor. I believe we are ready to proceed.
Ms. Jones, do you have anything that you need to add to the court?
Other than my own closing statement, no, Your Honor.
Very good. Mr. Prosecutor, your closing statement?
Thank you, Your Honor, and to the good citizens of Murkystone. I would like, in my closing statements, to stress that the prosecution could have continued calling up witnesses and presenting evidence until there were no more citizens in Murkystone, and the majority of them would only serve to further prove the point as to why the defendant is provably and historically a danger to society and an unrepentant criminal. Now, as to the issues of mental health, there is no doubt that the defendant is divorced from reality and lacks empathy. But as the evidence and the witness statements have shown, these are not the actions of a crazed individual that is out of their wits. These are the actions of someone who is methodical, self-aware, driven, and determined.
I think so.
Someone very capable of elaborate lies and deceptions, with a complete disregard for human life or the well-being of her fellow citizens.
I agree.
She has shown herself to be a menace to society, both with verbal threats and harassment, as well as physical assaults, underhanded poisonings that at best would be reckless endangerment and more realistically would be direct attempts to harm.
Yep.
Her direct affiliation and membership to an organized terrorist group that promotes violence and murder cannot be understated either. With that said, and in regards to this group, she cannot evade responsibility for her actions by blaming it all entirely on this cult, as we have received information that she has not only been disowned by them, but have also heard accounts that her demeanor and behavior did not match the rest of these cultists, even if they all participated in the same activities of aggression and terrorism. Now, given the defendant's capacity for deception and lies, there is no guarantee that any mental improvement in the future would not be theatrical, and any doctor that might provide such verification would be misled or threatened. Even if the defendant lacks, ironically enough, the human capacity for empathy that makes all of us care for our fellow man, that condition should not allow her to escape the fair and deserving justice that anyone else who took these actions would receive. With all of that in mind, the prosecution will insist that the defendant be judged with the full weight of the law and insist on the verdict of the death penalty, or at the very least, categorization of the defendant as criminally insane, further incarceration with maximum security, and no possibility of freedom by evaluation within the next 15 years at the earliest. Thank you, Your Honor.
After all that we have all learned and heard today, I believe that it is very clear that my client is absolutely guilty of crimes, but very evident that my client, as stated by some here on the stand, is not sane by any means. And I would argue that she was a tool, the perfect tool for this cult, molded from a young age with torture, literal torture, as a child, to do the things that she did to all of you. She is responsible for those actions, but she is not responsible for her upbringing, nor her mental state due to that. The true villains here are her parents and this cult. I do not want her to evade justice. She does not want. But I do not believe the penitentiary is suited to or able to keep Marie, Miss Aphrodite, in check, considering that she's not just a danger to other people, but she is a danger to herself. I was given a tour of this asylum by Dr. Greenmore himself. There are padded rooms, there are strapped tables, there is medication, and there is more than enough facilities, I was assured, as well as security, if this cult were to attack or try to free her. There would be no getting out. I was also assured by the chief constable here that there would be security should this occur. I am so dreadfully sorry for the pain that my client has caused due to her conditions. I really am. I will not defend her actions, but what I will defend is the terrible circumstances she had to go through, and what made her the person that she is in this very chair. That is all, Your Honor.
very good. If there is no other items to be added, we're going to take a brief 5-minute recess while I deliberate on this case.
Your Honor.
Oh, yeah, what is it, counsel?
Perhaps if defending counsel and myself approach.
Yes, would you please both approach the bench? Up here, counsel. By Miss Jones.
Miss Jones, how willing are you to save the judge some time and save the defendant an appeal that she will likely not win? Can we reach some middle ground here?
What middle ground is it that you mean?
If you agree right here to the second option, the one of incarceration with a minimum period during which she cannot leave no matter what, we will withdraw the death penalty request.
Mousy, who said?
Your Honor, what do you think?
I will review the crimes and I will review the documentation and the laws, and I will ascertain as to what that might come out to.
I would like prosecution to also remember that a lot of these charges do not have evidence provided with them to stick.
What do you mean
At
they
least
don't?
the most damning, such as attempted murder and terrorism, there is no definable evidence to completely make my client that. You do understand that?
I do. That may be the case now, and that may be why we are willing to reach an agreement. But if a verdict is reached that prosecution the citizens are not happy with, this will go to appeal, and you can believe any such appeal will have all the necessary proof and information. And then there will not be the option of incarceration.
Can we have the constabulary bring everyone back into the courtroom?
All right.
I barely saw her behind the
She
desk.
was just talking to client.
All right. This This trial is now in session again. All right. So, after reviewing the charges and the laws involved, to the charges of attempted murder, I find the defendant guilty on all 10 counts. As for terrorism, I find the defendant as not guilty on all 5 counts, and they will be dropped. On the count of harassment, 3 charges, we find the defendant guilty on all 3 charges. The defendant has pleaded guilty to 5 counts of resisting arrest, guilty to 1 count of reckless evading, but not guilty to all others. We will, it is a judgment of this court that she will be found guilty for 1 count of reckless invading. As for aggravated assault, we find the defendant guilty to all 5 counts, to which they have also pleaded guilty with some mitigating circumstances. We find the defendant guilty of 5 counts of disturbing the peace, and we find the defendant guilty of disobeying lawful orders, 5 counts. We do find the defendant guilty of possession of items used in the commission of a crime due to their own admission, and we have not found sufficient evidence that the client or the defendant is guilty of any kind of vandalism. So therefore, those charges will be dropped. As is customary, we'll move directly into sentencing. Now, the defendant has been found guilty of these crimes. It is a judgment of this court that the defendant was not cognizant of the act of the criminal intent, rather that going by the jury Aphrodite will be remanded to the state hospital, the state mental facility, for the indefinite future to be reviewed in 15 years as asked by the prosecution for possible rehabilitation and release. But until this time, she is to be remanded to the custody of the Merkystone Psychiatric Hospital under the care of Dr. Whitmore.
Are you kidding?
I will have order
in this courtroom.
Order in the courtroom.
I did not ask for anyone to speak. You want to be held in contempt of court, we can have that trial next. She is to be incarcerated until such time for 15 years in the Merkystone Penitentiary, Merkystone Psychiatric Hospital, under lock and key. And that is the judgment of this court. This matter is now concluded. You all have a good day.